Regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. It is Monday, August 19th, 2019. If you'll join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's see, the next item is approval of minutes from our August 5th regular meeting. Packet.
I move that we approve the minutes of the August 5th, 2019 meeting as written.
A second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Anyone present to speak? Yes. We just ask you to identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry?
Just identify yourself.
My name is Jim McCoo, 34 Old Farms Road. I had the understanding that this water line issue was going to be put on the agenda and left under old business and left there until it was resolved. But it's not there, so I'm tired of fighting with you about it. I just want to know where is it now?
Okay, so I'll move that from my status report. On Friday afternoon, I received an email from the town attorney. He expected early part of this week to have the hold harmless agreement, which he has been working on, in order to have us move forward with an agreement with you on what the connection would look like. And so I expect that. I would hope this week.
I'm sorry, as you know, I don't have great hearing.
So
when were you?
he had said, his email on Friday afternoon had said early this week.
Oh, that's great.
So,
Okay.
excuse me, it was not today. So, you know, I'm hoping tomorrow or the next day. And then you would hear some communication. Just so everyone's on the same page, you have engaged counsel on that. So any communications will go through the town attorney and your counsel.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. The next item on the agenda is a list of correspondence. I will bring note to the first item, which was an invitation to the CCM convention. If either of you are interested in attending.
That's fine.
And there was, Robin has the information upstairs. It's also online. So I will be signing up to attend in the event it is not myself. So the first selectman then, whoever that shall be, will attend. So if you'd like to attend any or all of it, you can. Robin,
When is it again?
Okay. It's early part of December because of elections.
Oh, okay.
So I want to say it's the first week in December. Maybe either the last, I'm trying to look at the calendar, the last week in November, the first week in December. I believe it's the first week in December because the last week in November is Thanksgiving week.
Yes.
Okay. So status report. The only change I have from last week's report is concrete evaluation. Troy and I are currently working on an RFP so that we can begin specifically looking at the senior center and the library. So look for that coming soon. Public Works. So things done at Public Works. You may have noticed, especially if you drove here tonight, we've been chip sealing the roads. So the Public Works Department has been sweeping the roads prior to chip sealing, providing traffic control for chip sealing. Roadside mowing with our new mower is taking place around town. They've been fixing washouts along the roads where the chip sealing is taking place. They moved some boxes to the senior center. Chip sealing should be done today or tomorrow, depending on breakdowns in weather. I didn't hear anything from Troy to say definitively if they were done today. Crack sealing is being done around town. It will continue this week and next week depending on weather. They picked up trash at River Road, mowing the senior center and Halls Pond. The speed signs we discussed have been ordered and should be here in 3 to 4 weeks. They patched a hole at the end of Jurassic Road. Got winter sand bids, and we'll get to that in snowplow and sand bids much later. The last item Troy has put on here for us to, I wanted you both to take part in conversation. You know, we currently have 10-hour days. Our crew went from 5 8-hour days to 4 10-hour days per the union contract. That ends the second Sunday in September. So beginning September 9th, they would come back to work Monday through Friday at 8 hours. Troy is asking if we would be willing to extend with union support 10-hour workdays until November 1st. He feels that they're able to get more accomplished in those longer days, paving, grading roads, roadside mowing, which they're behind on, and they have a few drainage projects that will take extra time to set up for. So again, the union contract gives a time, a specific time from May to a specific time in September. But he would like us to consider extending that till November. We're reminding you all that we just got the new roadside mower, so there's certainly a lot of roadside mowing that we knew we were behind on. And the longer they're out there, the more they're able to do. By the time they get out someplace and then have to pack up to come back in, it takes more time, and in the 10 hours they can do more.
So, when are we going to discuss that?
So we can, if you're in favor, I can reach out to the union, that it doesn't affect the pay. It has been done in the past. I believe 3 or 4 years ago it was done. And this way they would be done prior to snow beginning. And then again, if we had any kind of, storm, hurricane, something like that would alter our plans.
As long as we don't have to give anything up to the union yet, then
Okay.
that's up to Troy. He wants to
Okay.
do that, so yeah.
So I will reach out to the union if they're in agreement without any additional stipulations. And move forward if you both are in agreement.
That's fine. Would it be a optional thing or required for the staff to do that?
Well, if we go through the union, it would be as a whole. And so what has happened in the past is they discussed it as a whole. Troy has already kind of felt out his crew, and they seem to be in favor of this as well. So again, then they would work 10 hours Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday, and they have Fridays off. So that if there were concerns with his department, then I think we would have to revisit that as a whole. I think it would need to be everybody on board, and I believe the union feels the same way. But if something changes or is unusual out of the ordinary, I'll bring it back to you to discuss. All right, so new business, item 1. We sadly missed the 40th anniversary of WIllington Pizza, but we had a longtime employee of WIllington Pizza reach out to us and make us aware that this August, WIllington Pizza celebrated their 41st anniversary in business. So Jeff Kelly, owner of WIllington Pizza, is with us tonight. I can't thank you for the many meals that my family has received. Many, many, many. That was just last week. And so with that said, I have a proclamation. On the 41st anniversary of WIllington Pizza, whereas Jeff Kelly opened WIllington Pizza in 1978 as a one-man operation in the town of WIllington, because of its popularity, a second location, WIllington Pizza 2, was opened in 1988. And whereas WIllington Pizza was proclaimed as the pizza that made Willington famous in 1994 by the Willimantic Chronicle, listed as Hot 100 of pizza restaurants in the nation according to Pizza Today trade magazine. And whereas WIllington Pizza is known as a staple in the town of Willington, it is a favorite of local residents, Yukon students, and visitors from around the state and country. And whereas WIllington Pizza has appeared on national television, most recently the latest episode of Food Network's Best Thing I Ever Ate. And whereas Jeff Kelly, who has owned WIllington Pizza for over 40 years, has been very generous with Willington nonprofits, sports leagues, community groups, Willington Day, and therefore be it proclaimed that the Willington Board of Selectmen of the town of Willington proclaims August 31st, 2019 to be Willington Pizza Day. Furthermore, Willington Pizza should be recognized during the month of August and every month of the year. In witness hereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the great seal of the town of Willington this 19th day of August 2019. So Jack's being here. Thank you. Thank you for all you do for our
Thank you for all
community
your
groups and our
support.
town.
The town and all the support.
We should have added a big whereas, we couldn't live without red potato pizza. See, everyone shook their head.
Thank
So we hope that we can see you here in another 10 years, 20 years, and another 41 years.
Hopefully.
So that would be great. Anyone else?
What are we
Want to
doing
share?
on
Yeah.
Wednesday today?
Before he goes, or before we close on this, Jeff at WIllington Pizza has helped the fire department tremendously. All the calls, big calls we have and stuff like that, where we got guys out for long periods of time, things like that. You guys provided us pizza each and every time without hesitation. Sometimes it's big orders, 10, 20 pizzas, and they're ready like that, so you've helped us a lot
If
in the
there's
fire
a-
department.
Yeah, if there's a snowstorm, you can look for crews taking their break at Willington Pizza too.
Yeah.
And getting a hot meal when nothing else is open, they stay open, so.
Yeah, if we're closed, usually John and Rich will go to Wellington too.
Yeah.
And phone and order in.
And it's great, it's great. It's a valuable resource when they don't have anything else and they're out there for long hours. So I don't think there's a group in our community that couldn't thank you for something that you've given back to them. So this is just our little bit to give to you.
Well, thank you for the support.
Thank you. We also will not be hurt and understand if you do not join us for the rest of our meeting.
I have to get back to
You
work.
are welcome to understand.
That's always a
So
good
again,
excuse.
we will share publicly that August 31st of this year is Willington Pizza Day. We will encourage people to go to Willington Pizza or Willington Pizza 2 and indulge.
Oh,
So thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Okay, that's it. We're all done, everybody. That's a good way to start every meeting. All right, so winter, the next item is awarding the winter road sand contract. So these are biannual contracts, and the bids went out, and you will you see them in your packet in front of you. For road sand, we had 2 bids come back. One from, Becker Construction, and that was at $12.65 per ton. The second was from Desiato Sand and Gravel at $20 per ton. So our Public Works Director has, his recommendation is to use Becker's Sand and Gravel due to the price. So there is a difference, it's a significant difference when we add in the number of tons that we use. You're talking about $30,000 difference.
Yeah.
So his recommendation is to use Becker's, but we do have 2 options before us tonight. So I will make a motion to award the, what's the language here?
What number? If you can read that reading.
Yes. I make a motion to award the 2019 through 2021 winter road sand contract to Becker Construction as per their bid of $12.65 per ton delivered, based on the recommendation of our Public Works Director. You can pick.
We both.
John seconded, there you go. All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Okay, motion carries. The second item is awarding a snowplow contract. Maybe. So as you can see, we only received 1 bid. We asked for 2 trucks. We currently have 2 trucks. We received 1 bid from Larry Kuchko at an hourly rate of $125 an hour, and that's for plowing, sanding services on standby. So we asked for 2. We are going to need 2. We do not have another functioning truck. We have a driver that we could put in one. Troy has another member of his crew who could be in a truck, but we do not own a truck. He did reach out, he's not done, but he has reached out to a couple of the vendors who he sent bids to kind of ask. This is not unusual. I did go through the last contract. We only received one bid at that point, and spoke to the second vendor, who then agreed to for 1 year. So we're in that same predicament again. So I know for sure he has spoken to two vendors who one does not have another truck and just is not prepared to put in the money to replace it, and the other is a good friend to the town, but they are unable to. They have other contracts, and we could not match that price. So that leaves us with one. So I would suggest that at the very least, we move forward with awarding one truck, and then we take the rest as we go. Troy, when we spoke this morning, was still going to speak to a couple more individuals to see if we could, what we can do now to get another truck. The most ideal situation is if we could use one of our own staff, but we don't have a vehicle, and that's the problem. We already are short in staff, and we know we are short in vehicles. So I will move to award the 2019 through 2021 plowing contract to Larry Kuchko as per his bid of $125 per hour, based on the recommendation of the Public Works Director.
Second.
Any discussion? Can you think of a time in the past where we didn't end up with a second driver? I mean, look, I'm holding out hope. Somebody is, now that we did ask for two in the bids, and, hoping that with change of conversation that, after going through the bid process, we did receive one. Maybe somebody has just one truck, but they didn't have two. It's a possibility, but going to find ourselves in
Can't help it out there.
Yeah, no. I couldn't find any record of it, so, no. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, the next item is, I wanted to have a discussion about an incident that happened. We had an employee, specifically our Parks and Rec department head, our Parks and Rec Director, Maureen Parcell. As you know, she is on the road a lot, especially this time of year, between camp and Hall's Pond and River Road and concerts and her field. She is a one-man show still. She's just one person in that department. She uses her personal vehicle for all of these events. While in the process of picking up lunch for campers, as they do once a week, she incurred damage to her car from a tree that just happened to fall on 195 right into her windshield, the hood of her car, and it did a significant amount of damage. And I'm happy to say Maureen was not hurt. So it's because of where it happened, it wasn't anybody else. It wasn't covered by someone else's insurance. It's an act of God. We did attempt to put it through our permit insurance, but as you can see, Robin shared with you some information that our policy does not cover those in their individual vehicles. It would be her responsibility in her vehicle. She does, however, get mileage reimbursement, right? So one of the risks of using your own vehicle is that these things could happen. I will tell you that the mileage in the budget for Parks and Rec Department, which does not fall under the selectmen, is $400 annually. We've estimated that if she had put in just the basics in traveling to the different venues in the town in the month of July, she would have incurred around $302 in reimbursements for mileage. I further estimated that if she put in a mileage reimbursement for every mile she drives around town, we'd be looking at somewhere around $2,300 annually. And she has a $400 budget. So what does that mean? Maureen doesn't ask for mileage reimbursement. She does when she goes out of town, when she travels a great distance. but otherwise she does not. I don't know that there's something that we can do, but I know it's something we should look at. Do we consider, what are our options here, right? Do we set a precedence by covering her expense, which is her deductible, and then she has a cost for rental car reimbursement, that's it, the rest of it was covered by her insurance. So it's her, I believe it's 500, did she give you a full accounting? And I apologize, she's on vacation this week. So she's looking at a portion of her rental while her car was out, and then a $500 deductible is what she's out of pocket. If she were to get, let's say, the $2,300 in mileage reimbursement, it's easy to say you were paid something for the use of your personal vehicle. Is it realistic of us to ask an employee who's in their vehicle continuously for months to use their personal vehicle without allowing for the capability of reimbursing them?
So that seems like that's not our decision to make in terms of whether
Unfortunately.
the insurance will cover.
Yeah, they said no.
So they won't. So the question isn't, can we cover it? The question is, what are our alternatives? I think the mileage issue is a separate issue. It's,
And this is typically why you get a mileage reimbursement, right? You're
Yeah.
taking the risk of using your vehicle and something would happen
right.
with it.
So the mileage thing is kind of separate, right? So if she's not claiming her miles and she could be getting up to $2,300 a year in miles if she's claiming it, that's a separate conversation. She needs to do that, or we need to make sure there's a mechanism for her to do that if that's increasing the budget line item. That is not, for lack of a more mature term, that is not fair, right? To have her do that and then not be getting the reimbursement. Separate question, right? So that's a different conversation. We can't cover the insurance, quite clearly.
Through the insurance.
Through the insurance. So then the conversation is, can we do anything else out of pocket from us, out of the goodness of our hearts? Or do we have to get a town vehicle so that
Yes.
employees are driving this town vehicle for trips around town and not their personal vehicles, so that we don't have to worry about this liability in the future? So those are the two questions. Do we do anything with this in particular, or do we go town vehicle? So.
And, I've looked at, there are different state auctions for state vehicles that are for sale, so maybe they have higher mileage, and maybe it'd be a town vehicle that's here in the town hall. She needs to go, she takes it. Our human service director needs to go somewhere. Our finance director needs to go to the school. Those kinds of things. The majority of the time, I could see it being used by our Parks and Rec department. She is all over. The really downside, right, we talk about the mileages, if she put in for all her miles, they would be denied because she doesn't have a budget for it.
So that needs to be
It
corrected.
does, right, at the Parks and Rec, it is. And that's to Parks and Rec department, because the unfortunate thing is their budget doesn't come to us. Maureen talks to us about it, but it is really, it's separate from the selectmen's item. She always presents to us, but they have the say in at the Board of Finance. But the amount of miles someone is putting on their vehicle, and I mean, almost every town, she goes to events, and even smaller towns, their public works department and their Parks and Rec department show up in a town vehicle of some sort. So we do not have an abundance of vehicles on hand for people to use. I cannot find another instance where this has happened, but I think it's worth us having the conversation of how we do business. And is this in the best interest? And we could have an employee who says, I can't do my job that way because I'm not going to be properly compensated, and when something happens, I'm out of pocket as well. If there was, if she were putting in all of her miles, she would be well over budget, and then it would just be denied. So there's a little catch-22 here. And again, mine are just estimates. I do not know the actual miles because she does not ask for reimbursement on her trips, continuous trips in town.
And, wow, what a can of worms we'd be
Yes.
opening up there.
Yes, we would.
Next week we'd have a dozen people from, driving my car to work, or driving from one place to the other, and I hit a deer, and I want a new car. This is opening up a whole new area of compensation for people.
Yes, but I agree the conversation then should be around, we need to either fix that they can adequately be compensated for the work that they're doing, or provide a vehicle in which to do the work.
And when she went to the insurance company, as I read it, what the insurance company is saying here that, well, in this case, I think it would be the state, but because it was on Route 195, but there was no negligence on the part of,
That is correct, it was an act of God, it's just a giant hunk of tree that came flying off.
so then would we be providing an insurance, and if we were, under what circumstances? Should we be paying for this act of God?
Correct.
And maybe we might want to revisit, and maybe she should have a vehicle. We have, our animal control officer has a vehicle. Maybe she should have a vehicle.
I think it's something that we should think about.
Yeah, I think too that when people apply for reimbursement for the use of their vehicle, I think you said that they're doing that with the idea that something like this might happen.
No, but that's your compensation, right? So we know that you take the risk, it's an at-risk item. We have, it's the same as we have, the Board of Education has staff that go between two schools, and they receive a mileage reimbursement, and that's to compensate you for the wear and tear of your vehicle.
Right.
And this is the same thing, wear and tear. These accidents falls into a gray area. If she,
No, this is above and beyond normal wear and tear.
it is.
So that doesn't.
And it was in the course of her doing the work she was doing for the town. So I'm not saying that, my first instinct is we should take ownership and responsibility. And then when you step back and look at it, you realize that you set quite a precedence and do open a can of worms. But it begs the question, should we be looking differently at the way we are conducting business, specifically for this department?
So, should we be covered? No, I don't think we should be covered. I have worked plenty of jobs where I've had to travel. I got mileage reimbursement. I always had to show proof of my own insurance. The organization, even though they gave me mileage reimbursement to travel, there was never any reimbursement from the organization for out-of-pocket expenses above and beyond normal wear and tear. So I don't think we should say, let's see if we can get $500 to cover her copay or whatever it was. Because I agree with John. I think that's complicated. I think that obligates us to then do it for all these other claims. And again, I need to separate it from the issue of whether or not she has the budget or is filing for reimbursement. That's a separate conversation. So I really think either we continue to do business as a lot of organizations do that don't have their own vehicles and say this is, you have to show proof of your own insurance and you get mileage reimbursement for normal wear and tear. Above and beyond that is, you're taking that risk. Or we get a town vehicle. So that she has access to and can choose to use it.
And the mileage discussion and the budget amount needs to happen at the Parks and Rec Commission. Well, at their commission level, right? They can start the conversation now as they look to their budget for the next season and make an adjustment based on the fact that, they we have an employee who does not, she does not put in for what she's owed, certainly.
Right.
And what everyone else, mileage is what she's entitled to, and she doesn't put in for it. She would only be looking at $400 so as not to go over her budget anyway, so she would run out of that. She would run out of that very quickly. So that, we can't make that change, that has to come at their level. I wanted to use that as part of the conversation as, do we think differently about the potential of needing a town vehicle to be used? And looking into that at least moving forward, potentially in the next budget cycle, and see what we can do and what that would look like.
Well, you can see now, she's budgeted $400 right now.
Yeah, last year and this year.
And she puts in for reimbursement or when she travels like out of town or something.
Typically.
And she's used up for 400 or?
She hasn't used any yet this year. And I'd have to check with Donna on the exact numbers of what she used last year, but she typically.
So this is part of the thing, and this happens to us a lot, and I think we need to have conversations with staff about not doing this anymore. People need to put in for what they do, what they actually do. We have this
Right.
conversation about hours, we need to have this conversation about mileage. People need to put in for what they actually do, not feel badly that it might go over budget. Because it's very bad business practice, for one. For two, it's unfair for staff. And it is our obligation as the town, if we are asking people to work more hours than we're paying them, or drive more than we're able to reimburse them, then we are putting an unfair burden on our employees, and that needs to change.
I agree. 1 year it should have
So-
happened. 1 year you see your budget of 400
Right.
and you spent 2,400. The next year you say, wait a minute,
We need
let's
to
look at
fix
where we
that.
were spending,
Yes.
and is that accurate? And wow, we really need to increase that. And so that should have happened, but it didn't.
So I understand the motivation to, like, as an employee to say, well, we only have $400, so I'm not gonna put in every time, but you have to put in every time, and I think all staff needs to hear that message. You bill for the hours you work, you get reimbursement for what you're owed reimbursement for, if you buy paper, if you buy, gas to drive all over the town, staff has to put in for that.
I'd like to make a recommendation that the town buy
Can you
a,
just identify yourself for the
Mr.
record?
Waschinsky, Adams Road, to buy a vehicle for use for the town staff, not just park and rec and all these, but anybody can use it, just sign up the days you need to take a vehicle, that way there you cover the whole town, and everybody got a chance to use it. If John needs to go to Hartford, he can come down and get it and go. As long as he puts down, or you, whoever wants it, and that way there, it's covered. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts, but that's the way to do it. It's just not take it in one person, park and rec. That's what started it, but everybody wants to find out, we have a vehicle. Now, doesn't the town garage have a vehicle that sits down there? A station wagon or a multi-van?
I don't believe so.
They don't have
Used to have
no,
it suburban ones.
they used to
Say, I
have
have not seen that.
no, I'm saying they used to have a Suburban.
We
that
don't currently,
they
no.
used.
GMC, they don't do that all the time. And then they have that resident, so they do have.
Which they've been using.
They use
and
it
And the
better.
red one, I did inquire with Troy about the red one, and specifically, the red one is on its last
Yeah,
leg.
that I would recommend.
But there have been times that I thank you for your suggestion, and that's what I'm saying, it's here if we need it. I believe, especially in the summertime, it's going to be signed out 90% of the time by our Parks and Rec department. But I think it's something we should begin to look at, and this just brings to light, this time of year, our Parks and Rec director's job is not in her office in Town Hall. It's at multiple locations outside of here, so it begs us to look at that a little bit different and kind of change with the direction of how we're doing business.
The other thing is, to these drug cars, the cops pick up and everything, get confiscated. inquire about getting one of those at no cost.
Parks and Rec and Lamborghini. Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen, we got it, no cost, we might think about it. You know, I have looked around in public auction sites, just to kind of get an idea of what things would cost. Obviously, you're buying, you know, kind of as is and at your own risk. But there's something to be said, and I've explored a couple of other options, which if something changes, I'll bring to you in the near future. But I wanted to make you aware where we're at and make us take a look at it. We weren't sure when we put this on the agenda where everything stood with the insurance company, and they made it very clear that their policy has very specific, our policy has very specific language against covering personal vehicles. So I will be sharing the same information with the Parks and Rec Commission so that they can look at a forward direction. Well, I thank you for your input. The next item, last month we talked about an agreement between the library board of directors and the town to take over their bookkeeping. They still haven't made any decisions. Currently they have a meeting for tomorrow evening to discuss this item. Unfortunately, I believe it's the same time as a meeting we have here, but I have been in contact with them and they're hoping that their board will make a decision at tomorrow evening's meeting. So what you have in front of you is a very different agreement than what I brought you. Oh, I have one for you. Oh, you already took your passport. I changed the language. It's now a lot more specific, a language in the first one that Donna drafted. It's very similar language to the fire services agreement in conjunction to the financial services. And that spoke to some of the things I said we would add in last year, which would there would be a term to the agreement, says specifically where the money would come from, what their financial reporting would be. And again, this is us doing financial services for the library board. This has nothing to do with oversight of their spending. They have a budget and it is the responsibility of the library board of directors. They do not answer it to us. We do not have oversight of the actual line items and how they spend those funds. It goes into a fund, we spend it out of there. The only, the main difference between the other agreement and the language I took for this is the money would be transferred to a library fund as opposed to using a town checkbook as we do with our fire departments. We would still be using the library's checking account. So instead of adding the library to one of our accounts to be able to have access and utilize, they would be giving us permission to use theirs. So I wanted you to be able to see it. We didn't know if they would make a decision before tonight, so I made sure to leave it on there.
If they would make a decision.
Yeah, I'm hoping to, it's on their agenda for tomorrow. So-
What's going on tomorrow in total?
The Emergency Services Efficiency, Emergency Services Committee. So,
I don't have enough on these.
Yeah,
I'll be in this one.
We'll talk about it,
Sounds
okay.
good. And Liz will be back. All right, last item, the property purchase at Willington Hill. So we had an agreement, we made a change that John had given us. Liza has asked for a specific language change on our wording, and so we'll take a look at that. Chief Snyder, sorry, provided us, he received just prior to our meeting back their version of the agreement. So if you could highlight things that changed.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it's kind of stapled all together as one packet. On top of it is the $10,000 portion of the agreement. In both agreements, there's three changes that took place that are recommended by the attorneys. The smallest one, in my opinion, is a monthly reports provided section, which is section on the $10,000. It's section 1, subsection C, which has been eliminated basically altogether. And the reason why is that the recommendation of the attorney, first of all, was that It's not part of a financial agreement, it's kind of a ongoing reporting, which they say should not be part of a financial agreement. On my side of it, if it's in a written agreement, a signed agreement like this, it basically means I'm held responsible for getting you guys a monthly report every month on everything that's going on, which is kind of logistically hard for me. So if I miss one of those agreements, it could be in one of those monthly reports, it could be in default of the agreement, just for that. So, I mean, again, if there's any type of reports or requests or questions or anything like that from the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, or anybody for that matter, you can always ask, and at any time I can give you an update or report, things like that.
There is some language in the fire services agreement that speaks to reporting too, that could pick up that difference.
Right.
Again, that first comment came from your attorney initially.
Okay, all right, so.
That's not one of the changes we made.
There you go.
This is all afterwards.
Deal.
Secondly, the $10,000 has a reimbursement on there which says that, again, chapter 1, section A, it says that as the $10,000 will be reimbursed, as well as an additional 15% of the total sale price of the property. Of the total sale price of the property is what it says. That combining with the $10,000 would be $62,500 if we sold the property for what we're paying for right now, $350,000. So that has been removed, the additional $15,000. We feel that, again, on the recommendation of the attorney and our feelings, is that the $10,000 is part of a direct budget increase for expenses and things like that, line items that are provided on the back page. So therefore, the recommendation was it should just be a budget increase, period. Bring that to the taxpayers because the budget had already been passed and needs to be addressed as an increase. But we left it in there as a reimbursement, but without the 15%. So that's the second item. The third item kind of goes along with that second item, which is on the $50,000 agreement. Same thing, same concept. Section 1, subsection A, that it says the same thing, as well as the $50,000 will be reimbursed, as well as an additional 15% of the total sale price. So now that agreement, separate from the $10,000 agreement, would mean we reimburse you if we sold for $350,000, then we would reimburse the town $102,500, according to those calculations. So all combined with these two agreements, it'd be $164,500 back to the town if we sold for $350,000 that's what we paid for it, which was a good deal for the town, but that's not what we agreed
Can I
to.
share with you a change that had come from?
Yeah, absolutely, go
it
ahead.
didn't- Unfortunately, because of email issues, I know it's hard to believe we have computer issues, that had been requested, the language be changed to read, on our end, we had put 15%, so 15% of the profit, not the total sale price.
Okay, and again, the understanding that we had, and the attorney had from watching the videos and things like that, is that the percentage put into the purchase, which is $50,000, is a percentage of 14.28% of the purchase price. And it was talked about, if it was sold, no matter what, for a profit, for a loss, that the 15 or the 14.2, the percentage that was put in would be reimbursed, that same percentage. So if we sold for $1 million, it'd be 14.28% of $1 million, which is an increase to the town. And again, that's what the new wording says on the $50,000 agreement, that in the event the Willington Fire Department sells the property, Willington Fire Department shall pay the town 14.28% of the sale price to repay the town for its percentile contribution of $50,000. So it's basically saying what we talked about all along, that the percentage you guys are putting in now would be returned no matter what the sale price. So those are the changes that we have. And the only other question that I have is the $50,000 agreement is still kind of addressing a purchase as opposed to reimbursement for loans.
Right, which didn't change since we had this last conversation.
Right, it's the
So-
same, and our feelings all the way around on our side of it is that the $50,000 is going, again, towards it's an agreement as to how it's going to be handled, given and received back if need be. But the $50,000, again, is going towards the contract for services, and so it really isn't going to, the taxpayers cannot specify a line item increase and things like that, so the taxpayers would be handed an increase or a sum amount to the fire department, as opposed to choosing what line items we put money on.
one
So
of
to
the
create a line item, we talked about in the Board of Finance,
Right.
really wouldn't be prudent to put in the agreement.
Well, so one of the questions, that's not necessarily the agreement, so one of the questions that I had coming out of the Board of Finance meeting the other night was, do we need to change it to the property purchase, or do we need to specifically mention now that you've purchased,
Yeah.
where exactly the funds are going? And that question has been posed to our town attorney, if we need to add one line in here. So, I can't remember who was at that meeting. What transpired was that they have since purchased it. They had two individuals who gave them loans. They are listed as mortgage holders on the deed to the property, and they're filed with the town clerk's office. So I asked, what would the $50,000 that the town had, how would that be used and where would that go? And Chief Snyder specified that they would then pay their loans off.
Right.
And so that's where it would go specifically. So, my question to our attorney was, did he feel that that needed to be specific into this agreement?
It's an indirect purchase of
Correct.
the property.
And I think that may be very simple language to put
Right.
forward into here if he feels that that is best for
Right,
both.
that's the only question we have
Right,
left on the
best
agreement.
for both parties. So for us, it's, do we agree with the changes that they've made? I certainly have no issue with them taking out the reporting. I believe there is some, we know with the $50,000, there's nothing for them to report on how they spent it. They're going to spend it one time, if voted on by the townspeople,
Yeah.
and it's going to go one place. The $10,000 is part of a budget. There are mechanisms within the fire services agreement that speaks to asking for information on the town side. So,
On that 10,000, once again, the still reads here, WHFD is requesting 10,000, et cetera. Said funding would be added to WHFD's annual budget request to the town and will be allocated based on the estimates provided in Schedule A. Now, you're going to be requesting the 10,000. Is there anything that says that the town must approve that 10,000?
that would happen at town meeting. If we vote to go to town meeting, that's what we would be asking residents to vote on. Specifically, $10,000 added to their budget.
it would
For this year.
For this,
It would start going to the Board of Finance.
correct. But that's the ultimate goal here, is if we're going to a town meeting with this,
With
the
the
Board of
whole-
Finance is gonna go that direction, and they're going to be asking for $10,000 in this current fiscal year,
Yeah,
in addition to their budget.
that's a given. But just what I think I'm reading in here, then it's going to continue asking for $10,000 every year for that. Is this correct?
Yes, and they can ask
Well,
for that. but
I don't
they're just
see it that
regular.
way. I see this as a one-time agreement for the purchase in this year. It doesn't say annually, it doesn't say anything about future years.
Right.
If you're asking $10,000 this year for, power and stuff, you're gonna need power again next year.
Well, right, and again, we
You're
have
gonna
to come.
need, you're gonna need another
Yeah,
yeah.
$10,000.
There's
But we're not bound to it by
Yeah,
this, the
that's
Board of
just 1
Finance
year,
can say.
just the 1 year.
Right, next year, listen, John, in December or January, when they present their budget, they may come forward with a $10,000 increase. Over last year, because it didn't have this number, they may come forward with a $5,000 increase because they didn't need what they had, or they could come forward with a $25,000 increase
Right.
once they know what they need. So, yes, whether we agree to this or not, if they own a property, they may come back to us and ask for money to maintain it. This is independent of their future requests. We're not speaking to that, and unless we had language, and I'm not saying that I'm suggesting this at all, unless there were language in here that said you cannot, and I don't know that that is something that we can, and I definitely don't think it's something we should do. But otherwise, this is independent of their future budget requests. They would just, I would assume they would just be more accurate.
So it does say in the language here that, I mean, I can see why, if you're reading it, you would assume that it bounds us to future years. I know that it doesn't, but I can understand why reading that.
I don't say it binds
So-
us in the future, but it sounds like they are expecting it,
So,
which could be
well-
embarrassing.
So it says, said funding would be added to the budget request, and the town would allocate based on, so I can understand why that would be the assumption that the town would allocate what was
Or we could
requested.
simply put in there this fiscal
Yeah.
year's budget that's already
2019,
been approved,
2020
yes.
annual
Yeah.
budget
Yeah.
request.
I think just leaving it at that is
Yeah.
fine, I don't think we need to specify anything for future years, because that's gonna be your,
Right.
not to sound
That's how we
bad,
see it.
that's gonna be your problem in future years, right?
In January,
But
that's
that doesn't work
yeah.
that way.
You have problems.
Yeah, right, I think they just identified the place.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it maybe wasn't specific enough for you, which I can understand.
So,
So do we agree with taking out the percentage back on the $10,000 and changing the language? Again, I'm gonna run it by our attorney because it was all drafted there. But do we agree with the changes that the fire department has brought forth at this point?
I agree with taking out the percentage on the $10,000, because that to me isn't towards the purchase of the property.
Okay.
That is towards support of operation,
Okay.
which is not something that they get back if they sell the property. They don't get that $10,000 back for selling the property. Unlike the investment piece in the actual purchase price. So I'm with you on that. I think there's a question of the reimbursement, or what gets paid back if they choose to sell. So I've heard a couple things I want to just kind of clarify where we are. So is it the $50,000 plus 14.28% of the sale price?
No,
Or is it
the
just-
understanding that we have, and what we discussed is 50,000 is 14.28% of the purchase price. And when it's
Right.
sold, you will get 14.2% back.
Okay, so I think that's different, I don't know if everybody else was thinking that, that's different from what I was understanding from previous conversations. Not that it's a bad difference, but that it is a significant difference. So, the assumption I was working on before was that it was $50,000 would come back plus 14.28% of the profits. That's
Okay, yes.
different
I mean,
from-
what was always talked about was 1/7 of the price is
Well,
being put in, 1/7 was
50,000
back.
plus.
You have to, right, you repay the
Was what-
50 that the town gives you, and then the percentage, that same percentage, we use 15, you use 14.28, so I
So
concede
use
to 14.28,
it's fine.
but we're saying 14.28 of the profit.
Right.
At our original language, when it was revised by our attorney,
I don't know how that would add up. I mean, for example, on 350,000.
on 350,000, you didn't make any profit, right? You bought it for
Right, and
Right,
$350,000,
right.
then
we
it's
get our
no
$50,000
profit,
back.
right?
Yeah.
If you make $1 million, we get our 50,000, and whatever the profit was, the $650,000, we get our percentage back of that, a percentage of the profit.
Does that make, so
So
that was,
14.28 of the profit, or if you sold it for no profit, then it's a wash. You get your 300 and we get our 50. You sell it for $1 million,
the only problem being,
Who knows
if
who ever bought it
you
for?
sell it for $100,000, we still get $50,000 back, because that's what
our investment.
our investment was, right? So that's the only difference. If you sell it at a loss, then,
We're not taking any risk.
well, I mean, that's the thing, right?
It is.
So it's the risk for the town, and so that's why it's an
Right.
important distinction to make, and we should all be clear on what that is and what we are actually agreeing to, because those two things are different. If
Yeah,
it's,
like I said, in talking with the attorney and looking over what our understanding the whole time is how it's written now. And we feel that that's a fair agreement,
okay,
a fair proposal to the taxpayers.
okay. So then that's the 50,000 back plus 14.28.
No, I think they feel only our
It's a percentage
50,000.
that you're putting in, and you get a percentage back. And again, we just feel that that's fair to present to the taxpayers. If they decide that that's not a good deal.
But I think your language says, no matter what, we just get our $50,000.
And,
In the event you sell the property, Willington Fire Department shall pay the town 14% of the sale price to repay for its percentile contribution of $50,000 of the total sale price. So
that's what our original.
our language made it, what is your intent to say the $50,000 plus 14 are percentage of the profit?
No, the $50,000 is a percentage of the
Correct,
purchase.
right, we know that.
Of the purchase.
But we're saying
And
if you
so-
sell for more,
Yes.
we get
you
a
would
percentage of what you
a
make.
percentage, the same percentage you're putting in, you get. So again, if it's $1 million, you get 14.28% of $1 million. If it's less, then
I think your way,
you get less.
I think
but-
your way is more for us, more money for us.
Well, I mean, it seems fair. Again, it's an agreement that we think would be fair to the taxpayers, the town of Willington. I mean, I think it's a fair agreement all the way around, I mean, with the exception
I
of the.
just wanna make sure we
I think the
agree on
math
the
works
same.
out the same both ways.
I wanna
Yeah,
make
I was
sure
trying
we
to figure
agree
that out,
on
that
it.
way.
Not
Other
if it's a
towns
loss.
do
Not
that.
if
Not
it's
if
a
it's a
loss.
loss, that's the only
If it's a
scenario
loss, we
in which
make
it does not.
15%
If it's a
of
loss.
what they paid,
And let's-
which is why,
Let's keep in mind that the asking price and the purchase price, and a loss is not.
but let's be honest,
Unlikely, yes, it
you
could
have
happen,
hopes
but-
that it's gonna be something you were never gonna have to invoke this
Correct,
clause.
that's our.
But we have to prepare for that.
Absolutely.
And so I just wanna make sure, I think this is the only thing that's keeping us
Yes.
from moving in a forward direction. And if we could leave here being on the same page, we can give somebody who's paid bigger bucks than us to write that language, and that this is the clear intent.
Yeah.
So if we can agree on the intent here, then I think we can move forward with that. So our original language said $50,000 plus 15% of the total sale. We want that corrected
Yes.
to 15% of the profit. And that just didn't happen before you got it.
Right, okay.
Okay, so that is what
And so like
I,
Peter said, the only risk with it written this way is if it's sold for a loss, which, again, we
that's
feel
correct.
it's a fair.
So, right, so this way the town, we have done what we feel is best for the town
Yeah.
and not risk their money.
Mhm.
And either way, the town is, if you have to sell, the town's gonna get their $50,000. We're not out anything if you sell and can't do what you want. You taxpayers, you believed in this purchase, and if it doesn't work out, we'll give you back what you put into it, at the very minimum. But if it doesn't work out and you sell it for a boom, the town can reap some of that investment as well, because it is an investment from the town. And so we need to come to some sort of agreement. Do we agree on 50,000 plus 14.2% of the profit? Or just 14.28% of the sale? Because those are two different things.
Again, from our perspective, I think that's a fair agreement to bring to the town as written. I mean, it's kind of up to you guys if you want to reject that or not.
No, that,
You know.
so,
Right, but at the end of the day, we're both gonna have to sign that we agreed to this.
Right, right.
So, we were hoping we could work out those details before we put it to them, but if we can't, and then what you're relying on is us to put forth something, my guess is that it would be the
Oh, yeah, you guys-
50,000 plus percentage of the profit.
yes.
Not the total, but the profit, which is different than what you have in writing it.
Mhm.
So where we are on our side of the table on this is, the Board of Finance did speak on Thursday about where they would get the money. There's really only one place, and that's the general fund. So they tossed it into our court, and when we're ready for them to move forward and recommend, say where they're appropriating money from, very specifically, so they'll have to come up with the line items, and then recommend that we call a town meeting. We can kick it back to them as soon as we're ready, and that can be done in a vote.
So, we're good on the agreement, yes?
I think we have one little difference, but he's saying this is our best offer, and we're saying this is our best offer, and
Yeah.
we're gonna take something to the townspeople and let them vote. If they reject ours, we go with ours, and
Can we establish a date?
So I will communicate, as would be the process in most situations, communicate with the Board of Finance that we are in fact ready to move forward. Do we want that in a formal vote to say that we as selectmen are ready to move forward?
So I'm not sure what we're waiting for from the Board of Finance, because I feel like we've had a lot of conversations in this room
We are
about
not-
needing information.
So
from them.
we needed them to talk about whether or not we had the funds and where it would come from, because typically
they
at
do
this
that?
point, yes, on Thursday. The
Okay.
only place for it to come from is the general fund.
Mhm.
They did not figure out the nitty-gritty of where every line item would come from. They said there's a very specific line item where the $10,000 would go, and that's their annual budget. It has a specific budget line item, that's where that would go. There is not one for the $50,000. So that, I think, would then be, there was discussion. It was interesting to say the least. We have a member of the Board of Finance here with us. It's yet to be determined, but can be by the time this gets back to them. They can hold a special meeting. We do not have to wait till their next September meeting. We could then say, we're ready. We are okay, we've come to an agreement, and we're ready to put this to the town. In order for us to do that, they need to make a very specific motion. And we can move forward, and I can ask them to go ahead and appropriate the funds. They appropriate the funds and then recommend that the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting for the purposes of. And then we can come back and hold a meeting. All this can be done in special meetings, similar to what we do with CIP. Typically, if they say they're gonna meet on a Thursday, we can set our meeting for the next Friday to call a town meeting. It would be a special meeting. We can ask them if they could call a special meeting, but it's kind of in their hands when they do that. So at the very least, I would anticipate at the latest, if they agree, 1, 2, 3, September 19th is the third Thursday in September, so that is their next regular meeting. I would think at the latest, it could be done at that meeting. If they held a special meeting, it could happen before that. And then we could call a town meeting.
Okay.
I would have hoped that we could have other items that could go in the town meeting to save us money and funds, but I do not have anything currently. But that should not delay us in doing this. I would like to move forward, and I think moving, excuse me, sir, sorry. I think in moving forward, the best, for us at least, I am ready to move forward to the Board of Finance to say, we've done our part, we have agreed, we heard from you as to whether or not there were funds available.
Yeah.
And they made that clear that there were, and this is where they could come from.
Okay.
And then they would make a motion to appropriate said funds.
Even before we have the town meeting? I'm just trying to
Yes.
figure out what order things have to
Yes.
happen.
They have to appropriate money out of a line item, and then the town meeting says whether or not we actually are going to spend that money. If the town meeting says no, then we can't spend it. In which case, this goes away. They own the property, they can still continue to do what they want, but they're gonna have to work within the constraints of the loans that they have and the current budget that they have. So that is what it said. The Board of Finance can simply appropriate it and then recommend we call a town meeting because over $50,000 we have to go to town meeting.
So, if there's any way that we can request for some of those steps to happen as quickly as possible, being sensitive to the fact that this has been a long process, and I would like us to move this forward, now that we are at the threshold of an agreement, to move it forward as quickly as possible, given that it has been a while, and I think if the Board of Finance has established that there's a line item, then it's a matter of a rubber stamp at this point, if it's already been voted upon and established, so.
It is
So let's move it.
clearly a matter of them giving a very specific motion to move this forward.
Okay.
This is where we get to the point where there are some very specific words and details that need to be used to get us there. If they happen in the time of their regular meeting, then it works. If not, I can ask if they would be willing to hold a special meeting. But no, keep in mind that that is out of our control. That I would think at the very latest, it would be their next regular meeting, September 19th. But I would certainly suggest a special meeting. And they'll have to work that out, hoping that they can get a quorum. John, any?
No, I think we beat this to death.
Oh, yeah,
So I
twice.
want to make sure we don't need, so I'm going to make a motion, in the event of the motion, that we ask the Board of Finance to appropriate $60,000 for the purchase and budget increase for Wellington Hill Fire Department's property at 25 Old Front Street.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you for all your time.
I again, thank you
All
for
of
being
it?
Yes.
patient. We did say at the beginning that because this was an unusual process, that it
Yeah.
would take longer.
We do it.
And we want to make sure that we are all on the same page and in agreement.
Absolutely.
And have all the bugs worked out. So I thank you for that. Okay. Good and welfare. Okay, moving right along. So I have a couple of things. We are still in need of a CIP recording secretary. I'm gonna keep saying it until some generous soul steps forward. CIP will begin at the end of December and runs through February, usually early February, at least once a week meetings. So if anyone has interest, you should contact the selectman's office. Number 2, our Human Services Department has an ongoing back-to-school drive for school supplies, backpacks, pens, pencils, binders, notebooks. They give these out to residents in need. The distribution will start this Wednesday, the 21st. We've received many items. We can always use more. Also, if any families are in need, they should contact the Human Services Department in the town office building. But if you have anything to donate, there are boxes downstairs and upstairs in which you can do so. And Jenny in Human
Is
Services.
that list on their Facebook page?
Yes, it is. Jenny also wanted me to share with you that every year she gets a grant, usually around the $3,000 range. This year we were given, we were approved for $5,755. So it's almost twice what we normally receive in this grant funding. So she was very excited about that information. The additional, she'll use the money in the way that she typically does, which is to help with summer camp, team building programs, youth leadership programs, after-school clubs, among others. With the additional resources, she is working with the schools and Parks and Rec to use the funding to repair the climbing wall at Hall School. When I asked the question when the last time it was going to be used, the response I got was, you should ask how long it was used, because it was not used very long. It's been unused more than it's been used. So they're looking into a belay system in order, it's been closed. If you go to Hall School and you look at that nice climbing wall, it's covered up by mats and has not been used in some time. So they are working on putting in a system that the schools have not been able to have funding for. In which to repair, so without hurting the programs that we currently have, she's able to do something additional with this wonderful mystery money. So kudos to Jenny on that. I want to wish all of our students going back to school on August 29th at Hall Center and E.O. Smith a wonderful school year. For some of us, it's the last. I want to again say thank you and congratulations to Wellington Pizza on their 41st anniversary. Remind people that August 31st, 2019 will be Wellington Pizza Day, Wellington Pizza House Day here in Wellington. So go out and support Wellington Pizza. They are an incredible business, not just for their food, but their support. Yes, I agree. Yes, when they know what you're gonna order, when they know you when you pick up the phone.
That's right.
It's not a good thing. And never mind the fact that they've employed an incredible number of our youth in this town. So thank you again to Jeff and his staff, and especially to Nick, who's the employee who reached out to us to see Jeff get some recognition that he would never ask for on his own. So. And EDC just so we can share out there, has one opening. They have gotten a verbal confirmation, we're waiting for an official letter to the town clerk that they will have a second opening on EDC. So if there's anyone interested in joining the Economic Development Commission, please contact the Selectmen's office.
So we'll have two?
Right now, they just have one, but we're anticipating a second. And we received numbers from Troop C for calls during the month of July. Troop C responded to 490 calls for service. Most notable were 12 accidents, 10 criminal investigations, 6 larcenies, and 462 non-reportable matters. In addition, they conducted the following motor vehicle, 1 DUI, 220 traffic citations, and 49 written warnings. Yes, that is it.
Do we know how much money we're getting off the tickets?
I do not have an answer for you this evening, sir.
Could you find out,
I
please?
would love to find out.
Thank you.
All right, either of you have something for good and welfare? No, all right, with that, I move to adjourn at 7:41.